One of the things I wish I knew when I first started running was how long I could wear a pair of shoes for before I needed a new pair of shoes, and some other things that we'll get into later into the video. But as I continued running, I kind of slowly started to learn when to see the signs and how long I could realistically wear a pair of shoes before needing to get a new pair. It honestly got to the point where this is my very first pair of Pegasus. These are Peg 37s. These have over 750 miles on them, and that's not even the most that some of my shoes have. I have a couple pairs of Infinity Reacts with close to 800, if not over 800 miles on them, and quite a pair of shoes with even 600 to 700 miles on them. The general consensus is that you want to change out your shoes every 400 to 500 miles. But realistically, it very much depends on the person and also, to an extent, on the shoe. So today we're going to be talking all about when to change out your shoes, get a new pair, and what exactly you can look for to know if maybe you're not going to go by the mileage, you want to go by the feel. Some of those things can, really tell you whether or not your shoes are ready to be upgraded in a sense. So first things first, let's jump off the bat with the Daily Trainers. I actually just got a brand new pair of Daily Trainers. These are the Nike Vomero 17s. I've never worn a pair of the Vomeros. I've only ever wore Infinity React, Invincible, and Pegasus, those lineups. Quite a few in each of them, to be quite honest with you. I have a very extensive shoe collection, kind of just sitting behind me on my desk, but I'm really excited to test these out, but that's for another video. When it comes to Daily Trainers, like I said though, 400 to 500 miles is the general consensus. One thing that I like to think about is that if I were to be wearing these every single day, I'm probably going to want to change them out a little after 400 miles because I'm not giving my shoe a lot of time to rest, let the foam reset, and just giving it a chance to, recover in a sense. Your shoes are just like us. We need a chance to recover. You got to let your shoes recover as well. But if I'm going to be wearing these every couple days, maybe every other day, maybe a little bit more. Personally, I'll probably be using these for, runs after workouts, so my recovery runs, and that's only going to be 2 to 3 times per week. I could definitely get 500 miles out of these, at least I hope. This is a different shoe that I'm not used to, so I'll have to see. But for something like the Pegasus or the Invincibles, I know pretty comfortably 500 miles is a good spot for me. Now, the reason why I don't want to go over 500 miles is because the risk of injury increases after that point. And it's not an exact point. Every runner is different. So this number really isn't specific to every single person. It's more of a, like I said, generalized consensus. It could be, 450 miles for you. It could be 650 miles for you. It's something that you do slowly have to kind of test and learn as you continue your experience as a runner. But again, if you want to just play it safe, I think 500 is very reasonable. That being said, some of the telltale signs that you can look for with your running shoes to know whether or not it is time to get a new one. The very, very easiest sign is your feet start to hurt. I could not tell you how many times I've had this happen to me as in my earlier stages of running. Finish your run, your feet hurt, you're like, man, or even like a day later, you wake up and you're like, why do my feet hurt? Like it shouldn't feel like this, maybe you didn't do a hard workout or anything, but your feet just feel like a little stiff, a little sore maybe. It's probably because you need a new pair of shoes. As the foam compresses, you're losing your arch support, the contact and the impact on your feet are a lot higher because that foam no longer has a buffer room between your foot and, realistically the concrete is what most people run on. So it's going to be likely that as your shoes start to wear and tear, foam is going to go first and your feet are going to start to hurt. You can also just kind of look at your shoes and see, okay, all the tread marks are gone. These are almost bald at this point. You can also kind of tell how you run just by looking at the wear and tear on the bottom of a shoe. But as the bottom of the shoe starts to balden out, it's going to be pretty evident when, the bottom of the shoe no longer looks like what it looked like when you first got the shoe. And that could actually be very much quicker or longer depending on the way you run and your form. But I think usually for me, at least in my experience, the balls of my feet are always the first thing to go, and then there's like a little outside spot on the heel that also tends to go pretty quickly, and that's just from the way I run. But the rest of the shoe remains pretty good for the most part. I actually have a pair of workout shoes right here, and you can kind of tell even with these that some of the spots on this shoe is like really torn up from parts of the road that I've been running on. But the rest of the shoe itself is actually in really good condition for having, you know, maybe a little over 100 miles on them. So it's different for each type of shoe, and we'll talk about workout shoes in a second here, but realistically, you can kind of look at the bottom, look at the shoe itself, say, okay, you know, this actually does look a little different than what it used to. Maybe it's getting to that point, maybe wear it for a little bit longer. And a big thing is going to be how it feels when you're running in it. A lot of the time you can tell if that pop is gone from your shoes, if it feels like you're just falling flat. You know, really try to pay attention to how you feel when you first get a pair of shoes, because it's going to be evident when you put on, you know, 400 or 500 miles on them and you go for a run and you're like, wait a second, this is like I'm running barefoot at the point this moment, or, you know, you're stepping down and it feels hard. It's probably because your shoes hit that time to where you need a new pair. But something that I did want to talk about as well is not only what you do with your daily trainers, but also for workout shoes and racing shoes. So this is a pair of Nike Streak Flies. These are non-carbon plated. Technically, they're considered racing shoes by Nike, but I use them for workouts. They have a P-Bax plate in them, which is a little bit different from a carbon plate, but we're not going to get into that today. Usually this will last me 200 to 300 miles comfortably of running workouts. That 300 to 400 mile mark is where things can, you know, get a little iffy. I still think they're, you know, usable for that point, but they're not as good as they once were. So some of my workouts might feel a little bit more difficult than what I'm used to, just because the shoe doesn't have the pop that it used to. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop using them. Something that I really like to do, and I think is a great way to save your shoes a little bit longer, is that I'll start wearing my Streak Flies. I have an old pair that I currently use for my warm-up and cool-downs. You know, they have around 450 miles on them, but for 2 miles before and after a workout, it's not going to kill my feet to wear a shoe that's still in really good condition. It's just not as fast, so I'm not going to wear it for the workout, but I could still wear it for, you know, an easy warm-up or cool-down run. So that's something I like to do with at least some of the shoes like this. A carbon-plated shoe is probably not going to be as great for a warm-up or cool-down, but something like this, or maybe even like, I don't know, the Zoom Fly 4 and 5s, I feel like those are not as fast of, you know, workout shoes, so you could probably get away with doing warm-up cooldowns with those as well. But when it comes down to racing shoes, this is where things get a little interesting, because right here I have a pair of Nike Vaporfly 2s, and the Nike Vaporfly 2 is one of the best shoes out there. I think most people like training in them and then racing the shorter races, you know, anything from say 5K up to maybe even a half marathon. I ran at my very first half marathon in these and I thought they were great, but the way I look at the Vaporflies specifically is you usually have like 100 to 200 miles of prime racing foam, really good snappy carbon plate. And after that, I think of it as a workout shoe. And you could even do that before if you really wanted to. You could buy these just to use as a workout shoe. Nobody's telling you you can't. But I don't want to just wear these for 200 miles of racing and then just, you know, put them up on the shelf. So I love that my old Vaporflies I currently use as workout shoes, and they have 450 miles on them. You know, they're getting to the end of their cycle. They're on the verge of retirement, but I still want to get the most out of it that I can. So I use them for thresholds mainly. And I still think they're really good for workouts. You know, they still have the carbon plate in them. The foam is still in, you know, decent condition. So there's no reason for me to stop wearing them if I can use them for something else. And I think that's a great thing that you can do with racing shoes specifically, is wear them for 100, 200 miles worth of races. And then after that 200, maybe even 250 miles, you know, start wearing them for your workouts. Get the most out of the shoes that you can. There's definitely things that you can do with shoes that are going to extend the life cycle, you know, taking care of your shoes. I'll never forget watching the clip of Eliud Kipchoge clean with his hand, just going in, hand cleaning his shoes, making sure that they're going to be in the best condition they can be, last as long as they can. And it really made me realize, like, hey, You know, these shoes are what we rely on to run. We're not running barefoot. You know, the clothes we wear really doesn't matter. The shoes that we put on, though, they do matter quite a bit. And, you know, I'm not saying that a shoe is going to make you better than what training is going to do for you. You know, you got to train to be fast, but at the same time, if you're not wearing a good shoe, you know, you might be hurting yourself in the long run. So take care of your shoes. They're going to last longer if you care for them. You know, be careful where you're running. Try to stay out of the water so they're not ruining the foam, stuff like that. If you know it's going to be a wet and muddy route, maybe wear an old pair of shoes. There's things you can do to make sure that your shoes last for a longer time. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that you can take care of them to try to get the most you can get out of them. That's something that I consciously do. So that would be my best recommendation if you want your shoes to last longer. And then, like I said, with the racing shoe, 100, 200 miles worth of racing, use them for workouts afterwards. Why not? They're great shoes for racing. They're going to be great shoes for workouts for the most part. So that's just my thought process on it. Again, I do want to point out that shoe life is different for each shoe and different for each runner. The way you run, the form, the location, what you're running on surface-wise, all of that is going to come into effect on how long a shoe will last. So 400 to 500 miles, like I said, general consensus is that's, you know, the go-to, but some shoes are going to last longer, some might last shorter. You got to kind of feel it out, play around with it. Just be careful if you go over 500 miles because, like I said, the injury or the risk of injury is going to go up a little bit. Nothing crazy, obviously, but you just want to be careful. Don't want to get injured, of course. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them in the comment section down below. With that being said, though, hope you guys enjoy the video. Appreciate your time, your support, your love, all the kind of things you guys always used to say. So I really do appreciate that. And that being said, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.